All right. Welcome back to Practice Underwater. This is part 2 with our interview with James. And so we had a discussion, and apparently we need to be laughing more on air because we do a lot of our laughs in silence. And, I'm actually really funny, and nobody knows because Matt's not laughing. And so,
I just did it again. I did the soft laugh.
yeah, we did the soft. We need to start laughing, like actually like laughing really loud into the microphone.
Yeah.
Okay?
Like really scaring people. And, you might not know it. George is actually really funny.
Well, yeah, of course.
And like, I won't hide it anymore, George. I'll let the laugh right out so people know.
Yeah, no, and I think it's kind of been cool to watch I've gotten messages about it, and it's something that, I've really enjoyed is showing my personality more on air. I think the first time people meet me, they're like, oh, you're funny. That's weird. So anyway, we got James on, and I really, really enjoyed this one. Matt and I would have taken this totally different directions, which I think is great for you guys to have two hosts. So you can see, this is George's style, this is Matt's style. And again, this is a practice that reminds me a lot of mine, group practice, very much in between 1 and 2 doctors. And I do a lot of the, kind of summarizing in the episode. So we'll jump right to it. Matt, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, we got a beefy outro. It's 16 minutes long, just to let you guys know. So just a little foreshadowing. But
yeah, no,
it's a good discussion.
So this is a long Friday morning episode for you guys on Practice Underwater. We'll dive right in. This is our real doc, fake name James. Alrighty. I have with me here our real doc with his fake name James. And that almost rhymed. And we're here talking about his group practice. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to it. I'll give you guys a quick synopsis. So James here graduated, and he started working for this group practice, a group of 2 practices, and eventually he started working consistently in this one office. And long story short, he ended up buying it. And so he has a group practice. He's got 2 hygienists, 1 hygiene assistant, 3 assistants, and an associate, and then 2 front desk. So, and one of those assistants is a floater. And so he is currently a little bit overwhelmed right now. He has some staff turnover going on, and he's just in general questioning the sustainability of his practice based on his workload and the feeling of exhaustion with some extended hours. And so that's the big thing we've been talking about. And we ended part 1 with kind of a conversation with his assistant that is uncomfortable. And he made an interesting comment in the little between the 7th inning breaker, if you want to call it that. And so you said you didn't think this was going to go this way, and you had no idea where this was going to go. So where did you think this interview was going to go?
I thought it was going to go, and it still may get there. Just more to like my mindset and my vision. I knew it would get to leadership, but I don't know. I never really knew like where it would go, but I don't know, it's just interesting how we've kind of gone down this road and this is where it's led us. And I hadn't really thought about some of these things.
Did you think these were the conversations you needed, or do you feel like I'm kind of heading the wrong way?
No, I do feel like this is the conversation I needed. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just, that's the thing. Like, I think that's why this is great, is you don't really know what's causing your problem. You may think it's one thing and it may end up being another anyway. So
cool. So what'd you think it was before we started?
So honestly, I just like I say, I get down on myself when I think, man, I'm doing as best as I can to really build out the best practice that I can and make it as profitable as I can. And I just don't feel like it's that profitable and that, doing that great.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Yeah, no, that's like a part 2 metric stuff. But I wanted to have the conversation. I think, so the one thing that I did really notice about you is, we were talking about that stuff. I kind of felt like you had 2 chief complaints. So one was the sustainability of your practice. And then 2 was that mindset and the grass is greener mentality and that type of stuff that we kind of alluded to in part 1. And that, the leadership stuff, I think is in my view, kind of the root of the exhaustion is just when you have, so it's really cool because I've been on both sides of it. I had I don't know, probably like where you're at as a leader. Like, I wouldn't call you a terrible leader, but I wouldn't really call you like you're in your own as a leader for sure. Right. And so, I now, I'm just going to be honest. I feel like I'm on the other side of that. And I feel like I'm a really great leader and I have great control over my team. And it, yeah, like the level of enjoyment that you have with your job is a lot easier because that's like the biggest stress as an owner, and to have that under control and to actually have that be a strength, it's a very powerful thing. And so
Huge.
that's why I'm really focusing on that conversation,
Hmm.
because I feel like the sustainability of it can really like make your practice feel much more sustainable, like you could do it forever.
Right.
And you were like, I'm happy with making 300K, and I'm like, okay, well then, like, maybe the how much money you're making, the profitability isn't as big of a conversation that we need to have, because it's not as big of an issue to you.
And I think you're right. I think that part is just more the comparison part, but I think the rest of it is like if everything was kind of on autopilot and I was just like feeling like I go to work and I come back and I'm not super like overworked or anything like that, then I'm super happy with that income. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So,
So that's sort of what I picked up on in the beginning, and that's sort of why I started steering it this way towards the leadership stuff. But we'll get back to the other stuff. But I want to get back to that conversation with the assistant,
mhm,
because I feel like your ability to navigate these things is super important. And like right now, you're viewing it from a way of like, I'm gonna tell her what to do, and she's not gonna like it because she's overworked, right? Let's throw out the assistant turnover situation.
mhm,
Right now, like let's assume that you had a stable staff,
right.
because you did for a long time, and
Yeah,
you were still doing your own clinical notes. So
right.
you've definitely had this opportunity.
Definitely.
Yeah. So like you could have approached it that way. But I find that whenever you're in a situation with team, there's always two things I always lean to. One, we collaborate on solving the problem together. And two, we always start with why. So call that assistant into your office. And do you mind if I just kind of like how I would say it?
No, please. And I think you bring up a good point. See, I think on where it's like a staff issue, I have an easy job, or not a staff issue, like a whole office issue, like um, it's something to do with patient care, and I know like everyone will knows that that's what needs to be done. I feel like I'm very comfortable in saying, "Hey, don't you think we should do this? What do you guys think about this?" And then doing it. I guess in this case, I feel selfish, like asking. You know what I mean? Like I feel like this is literally just serving me, like, hey, can you do more work so I can do less work type of thing. And I think that's where I'm having the problem with this, especially.
Yeah. So great. I'm happy you acknowledge that, right? It's very important that you acknowledge a thing holding you back from having the conversation.
Hmm.
You always start with that.
Right.
So call your assistant and say, "Hey, I this is like a super uncomfortable conversation for me to have. I really don't want to have it because I'm afraid it's going to come off selfish, like I'm just trying to give you more work to do so I don't have as much work to do." You start with that,
Hmm. For
right?
sure. Yeah.
What's going to happen? Her guard is down. She's concerned about you. She cares about you. She obviously likes you, you know. And so you start with that, right? Like, I'm concerned about this. I don't want you to take it this way, but I'm afraid that you're going to. That's why I haven't had this conversation yet. Okay. I'm super overworked, tired, and stressed, and things are falling through the cracks. Like, what is the reason now? Like, first you started with the resistance to having the conversation. You've addressed
Hmm.
that. Her guard is down. You're going to have a nice, vulnerable conversation with your teammate. Then, why are you having this conversation? Because things are falling through the cracks as an owner, and I'm having a hard time keeping up with the things I need to do to run the practice successfully. That is why they need to do clinical notes. Then, how are you going to help me? So, I want to see if we can work together to find a way that all the assistants can do the clinical notes for the doctors. How can that happen? Balls in her court.
Hmm.
See how we did that?
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually.
So
Yeah.
you started with the reason why you don't want to have the conversation, right? That's the thing holding you back. That's going to take her guard down. She's not going to, like, who would attack somebody after you start a sentence that way? And you're being honest, right? This is not like us lying or manipulating.
No,
You're just
totally.
being super honest. This is why I'm super uncomfortable having this conversation. Start with that. Then this is the reason why this really needs to happen. It's in the best interest of everybody that I don't do clinical notes. And I'm not just saying that to be like, it sounds funny, but like that's the truth. And then how can we work together to make sure that we get this result? You're not negotiating on the result. You negotiate on everything else,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's like like imagine being able to handle things in that way all the time.
Yeah.
Like very quickly you start to like, you're stressed. Like the clinical notes is annoying. Like, dude, I don't do them. You know, like, like if
Oh my
it's like,
God.
right, if it's that one note that I got to go in and say something, or I got to say, hey, make sure you say it was close to the nerve or whatever. But like, you know, like for the most part, like simple crown prep on number 3, nothing went wrong, or like, why do I need to write that?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's, and anything I write, I'm not even going to care about anyway. It's like, thing went well, cool, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, you know, like, but then that adds up. So then, like, you know, having a similar conversation with your office manager, you know, again,
Totally.
what is the thing I'm most afraid of, right? I'm afraid of losing you. You're the most valuable person in the front of this practice because you know, like, things that I don't. Like, I'm terrified of losing you. The reason I'm having this conversation is that, like, the staff needs a leader, somebody who can listen to their concerns and address them and get things done, and then, you know, bring up the thing that is not happening that you want to make sure happens, and work with her together. Like, what do you need from me to make sure that happens? And always negotiate on the process, but never negotiate on the result.
Mm-hmm.
Just that, like, just kind of having that skill set can go so far for
That's
you.
huge. Yeah. That's huge. I really like that.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you ready to switch gears?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Cool. I started doing this with clients and they started liking it. So I'll just do it with you. I'm just going to give you like 2 minutes of me looking at your practice on practice by numbers on that dashboard. I'm just going to let you know what I see.
Cool.
It does about like 1.2 a year. I did 1.2 last year ish. Does that
Yeah.
sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing that I noticed was, I'll be honest with you, it looks like you're kind of varying between a 1 and 2 doctor practice, closer to a 1 doctor practice.
Yeah.
You know, your total diagnosis isn't like really enough to fuel 2 doctors. Like, you know, you have very healthy hygiene base, very retentive patient base, your new patient flow 30 a month. You're kind of like a very in between solo and group. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
have like you know, and your fees are small. So it might be like you're kind of more close to maybe a 1.4, $1.5 million office with like maybe some more normalized fees.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, you're kind of in between.
Yeah.
And I think there's the conversation that needs to be had of which way do you want to go? Because there's a totally valid route of, you know, cutting your evenings, letting go of your associate, and like just being a solo.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a other route of like you're kind of doing the I did this too. So like I did this. You have an associate. Is that an easy thing to manage?
To be honest, yeah, she's easy.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
cool. Okay.
She
So for
like so. This is the thing. She's like the ideal associate for me. So I don't think I would work well with just anyone. She's very easygoing, very not so like kind of like a little bit the opposite of me. So like she is just very passive, very unaggressive, very kind of just like floats and just like goes with the flow. Like I literally have her honestly to like pick up the loose whatever in the
yeah,
practice. You know what I mean? Like literally like so when I leave, someone's still there doing hygiene and I don't have to
yeah,
close it down. And the thing is she's like fine with that. Like she does not care um to be producing more or making more or whatever. You know, she's gotten busier for sure over this year, and so at the beginning she was really slow, and even that she was easygoing about. Like, so she's very easygoing, very,
yeah.
which is you know
It seems like you're kind of picking which way you want to go. You don't want to get rid of her at all.
not really. I
Good.
mean,
Don't.
yeah, no,
Good. So like I'm not going to argue with anybody that wants a group practice. So you're not going to find me like, so yeah, right. I've done it both ways. So I had an associate and I'm going to kind of tell you in a second here, but like I had an associate and then I went solo and now I'm back with an associate and I did it better the second time. I
mm-hmm,
learned a lot from my mistakes the first time around. And one thing you're doing is you're having an associate, but you're not taking advantage of the associate's benefits. So you're
mm-hmm,
dealing with all the downsides of an associate without all of the positives. Like, look, if I have an associate, I'm not working an evening, especially one easygoing.
yeah,
Like, right? Like,
mm-hmm,
that's why they're there.
right,
Like, you don't have enough dentistry to justify them. So, like, at least get some benefits.
mm-hmm,
You know, either like for me, I hired an associate and then opened a day. that I had no intention of ever going to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now I've like paid for that associate through that day.
Right.
But like, I'm not like the mistake I made the first time is I kept my hours the same and I worked the same hours as my associate.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't always make sense, especially not in a practice your size. So
Totally.
like, you know, go tell your associate, same formula. I don't want to have this conversation because it's going to make me feel like a super selfish, right? But I really cannot sustain my current work schedule with my workload. And if I don't do something, I'm afraid that I'm going to let you go and cut down to like get rid of our extended hours. So I'm going to stop working evenings and you're going to work them by yourself. Right? Like, like you don't have to say it just like that, but like that conversation would do a lot for your life.
Yeah.
So I would explore ways in which your associate can help you in your life. Kind of like you use her to take that stress off too, because she seems easygoing. That's kind of why I like. Not all associates would I have that conversation with, but she seems like she wouldn't mind that at all.
Yeah, like
if she could just come in later that day or something, she'd be fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to your practice. Like I think the thing that really jumps out at me is size. It's just not. You're just not a 2-doctor practice.
Right.
And your new patient flow isn't enough for 2 doctors. Your diagnosis is not enough for 2 doctors. You're, you know, and you're like really like your practice is like nothing. Like you do everything kind of well, right? Like your hygiene is reappoints well. You guys are, you know, I mean, I can't tell your fluoride percentages exactly here, but it seems like you guys do some fluoride. Your patient base is solid. You know, you could get a little bit more people in through the back door, but like for the most part, you're doing solid. Like I think the biggest thing, your AR, I would like to explore. If I was coaching you, I would definitely explore that some, but you know, not a conversation that we could have right now because, you know, we need a Dentrix report or something. But in general, like for the most part, I think looking at your metrics, the thing that really jumps out at me is not enough new patient flow to sustain your size. You're not big enough for 2 doctors, but we're going to have 2 doctors anyway. So like, let's enjoy it.
Right. So it's super interesting, like that you say that from the metrics, right? And I'm agreeing. Like I would agree with you. It's so like I do not have an opening for 2 weeks. Period. That's more than a half an hour, and I might not even have a half hour opening
in your schedule.
In my schedule, my assistant's probably 1 week, maybe.
I mean, you're seeing patients out of one column.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, my third column, I mean, I probably have, you know, 5 patients in the third column, but they're all, you know, not really doctor patients.
Yeah, it's like non-productive appointments.
Yeah,
which is the other question, right?
Like guards and stuff, like stuff that my assistants could do. But
how many ops do you have? 6?
7.
Why not you and your associate each work out of 2 rooms with 2 assistants? Or maybe just you, right? Your associate doesn't seem busy enough.
Yeah, maybe
like,
not her.
Why not get another assistant and have a dedicated 2 columns for you to be like actually productive? That was like the first thing that I thought of. I totally forgot to mention it.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. So like, I guess last year I kind of did that. And so when my associate's gone, I do that, right? So I'll run basically 2 columns when my associate's gone because I have the assistant power for it. So maybe it's just the fact that I just haven't hired another assistant or haven't thought of hiring another assistant to do that.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're booked out 2 weeks with like, and you can't get anybody in, like, doctor side should always have a bunch of holes. Like not a bunch, but I mean, you should definitely have openings. That's how you like fit in same day dentistry and like, you know, all that stuff.
And sometimes I can squeeze, like sometimes I'll squeeze in same day dentistry just because I'll throw it in the third column and have, you know, just make it happen. And I'll do that, but I never like schedule that way, like in advance. And so, yeah, like I said, I mean, I couldn't get someone in for a crown for over 2 weeks right now.
Yeah. Like I could get somebody in for a crown, like 3 days tops for sure. Yeah. I think that's important.
So maybe that's what, I mean, that's like a big thing. So it's just like, I feel like, how do I grow? I feel like I don't have the room to grow, but I mean, what you're saying makes sense. I just need to maybe hire more people. Like, I just feel like I don't have the room in my schedule to grow. Like
Yeah, because you need to open up capacity.
right.
Yeah. And like, so could one of you guys check hygiene by yourself? Those 3 columns of hygiene.
My assistant couldn't, but I could.
Your
Or
associate couldn't.
my associate couldn't, but I could. And I
Um,
do, but yeah.
it's not
So
enjoyable, I know, but
yeah. So Fridays we only run 2 columns. We run one assistant with or one hygienist with 2 columns. And same with Mondays. Right now we only run 2 columns on Mondays with
okay.
one.
You work Fridays right now?
I work every other Friday and my associate works every other Friday, yeah. Half day.
See, it's funny because like you have the situation with your associate where you guys are both sharing the inconvenient hours. Like the Fridays, the evenings, like it's so 50-50. Like, and I get that that's like the same thing with the assistant, right? Like that's one of your, I don't want to call it a block, but that's something that you're like very mindful of, right? Like, well, I don't want to do something, like I get it.
Like I
Like,
don't want to do it, so I don't want to make them do it.
yeah, but like at the end of the day, like they're not the one doing a lot of the stuff you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, well, I'll pay half the bills because he pays half the bills. It's like, no, you pay all the bills.
That's true.
So like, I think that in general, like if we're really going to get you to the point where like, and like, I'm not supposed to like give you my advice, right? Like I'm supposed to like kind of help you work out a solution on your own. But like really like what I think, like, you work out of 1 column. So get an assistant every time you're in the office. You have 2 columns, 2 assistants, and you're, banging out dentistry, and you're there like Monday to Thursday, reasonable hours. And then you have your associate who's there the rest of the time with you, and then you can like stagger her hours. You can be at the office without her. So like if she wants to come in one morning late, like, right, like you negotiate on the process, but not the result. So the result is I don't want to work any evenings or Fridays. And what is it going to take for you to make that happen with me? And we'll collaborate, right? Like what maybe she wants Wednesday mornings off or whatever. Like, like you can work with her. She
Mm-hmm.
seems super easygoing. Like
Mm-hmm.
this would be a very easy thing for you to set up. And like you're already going to have the associate. You're already going to go through the process of, like, yeah, you're going to trade happiness for dollars. Great. But then actually make that trade.
Right.
Like actually become happy with your schedule. Like, yeah, you're like taking the downside of having an associate without the upside. It's like, take the upside, man, or don't have the associate. Like pick one. You're kind of like stuck in the middle.
George, this is why I need to talk to you. You probably don't ever remember this, but like 2 years ago, I sent an email, something about not wanting to do something for my owners because I felt bad for my owners, like leaving my practice, and not telling my owners or something like that. And you're like, dude, this is your career. Like, don't survive. And I was like, you know what, you're right. And so like, George, you've been like the one that's like, hey, you need to like stiffen up a little bit and not worry so much about the other people.
Well, so yeah, in my office, like I hired my associate telling her, you are there so I don't have to be.
Yeah.
That was like in the interview. And it's like
Totally.
if I leave early for lunch every day, I come back late, I leave early at the end of the day, I'm not there Thursday, Friday, like that is why they're there.
Mm-hmm.
That is an expectation of the job, that you are there so I don't have to be. You're just dealing with the downside. Like if you didn't have the associate, you'd be making a lot more money, probably. In your situation, yes, because my guess is, and I haven't looked through it, but my guess is you diagnose more than the associate does. Yeah, look at that face. Oh yeah, for sure. Right. So then like your total diagnosis of practice would go up, your case acceptance would go up, you'd be a lot busier, more productive, and you'd cut some costs. So an unproductive associate, yeah, I mean, like, right, you're dealing with an unproductive associate who doesn't diagnose well. So like get some of the benefits of that. If you're not going to switch out the associate, then like, milk it for what it is, right? And take the benefits, right? So like Monday to Thursday, when you come home on time and you don't work Friday, at least you're like, well, thanks, associate, like because like I we don't diagnose as much as a practice, we're not as productive, we're not as profitable as we could potentially be, but I have my days off, so I'll take that trade.
Right.
I would do that.
I guess I need to like explore this a little more because you keep saying like I feel like I need her because I feel like without her like I could not see that I would have to start treating patients way is what I feel like. Like I feel like I couldn't even take more patients. But maybe I just need to explore that more as far as like, oh yeah, like because I've never, haven't
You
really
see
thought
patients out
about.
of one column.
Yeah.
Like you guys are both one column. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, you would just, I mean, you would have to do things differently and it wouldn't be enjoyable for you and it'd be really busy. But like, I'm not saying to do that,
Right.
but I'm just saying that's a route. That
Hmm.
is like, that is an option. You can take that exit if you choose, and it would lead to more dollars in your bank account every month and likely less happiness. But
Hmm.
which is why we're not going that way.
Right.
But
Right.
like, you know, if
But
we're
to
gonna
know that
trade
that is
dollars,
the path, yeah, at least like,
yeah, like if
know
we're gonna
what
trade
I'm
dollars for
doing.
happiness, let's like actually do it.
Hmm.
Like let's actually do it all the way. We're kind of like in between, right? You're like, there's a fork in the road. You should have went down the middle. It's like, go right.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we get back to the episode, I wanted to take a minute and thank Practice by Numbers. Without their help and allowing us to set up the shared practices dashboard, a lot of what we do on Practice Underwater wouldn't be possible. I want to take a minute and highlight a clip from the episode that we did with Rohit, where we highlighted some of the metrics that really matter most.
You cannot look at them just by themselves. You have to look at a few other things together with it. But the most important number any practice right off the bat should look at is patient acceptance. And the difference between treatment acceptance and patient acceptance is treatment acceptance is the amount of dollars that we're accepting. For example, if you presented $100,000 worth of treatment, how much of that has been accepted, meaning scheduled or completed? Okay, so in this particular example, if 100,000 was presented, 55,000 was accepted, or either scheduled or completed. But the second part is 72%, which is the patient acceptance. What this means is that if you presented $100,000 worth of treatment to 100 patients, meaning $1,000 per patient, 72 of those patients scheduled some aspect of that treatment. Looking at patient acceptance is the absolute best way to go.
I hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you guys are interested in trying out Practice by Numbers and looking at your practice through the Shared Practices dashboard, and there are many other dashboards, you can go to practicebynumbers.com and set up a free trial. The only other thing I want to talk to you about is the profitability of your practice. So you guys did 1.2 and you like almost 300K in profit.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And how does that land with you? Do you feel ashamed of that?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like that's what I get at the beginning when I feel like I should be doing for what I'm doing. I feel like I should be doing more. And I guess what it comes down to is, yeah, like I should be taking home more for what I'm doing is how it feels like. Feels like my overhead is maybe out of control. I don't know. I mean, I know it's not as profitable as most practices that I hear, because I hear a lot of practices doing that number that, the doctor's taking home, 400 or whatever, you know what I mean? And I took him 180. So
yeah, I mean, your practice your practice is staffed and the patient flow of your practice and everything is a practice that does like 1.4 to 1.5. Like your write-offs are just large, right? You're in a saturated area with low fees. And so we'll call that the location tax.
Yeah.
So you pay like $100,000 a year in a location tax,
Mm-hmm.
$100,000 to $200,000 a year. So like that's real. So it's not a reflection on you as an owner or you as a business person or anything. It is the decision that you made to live where you live.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that decision?
Yeah, I am. And yeah, but I have to remind myself of that constantly. Like, okay, exactly what you're saying. Like, I know that, and I've had that conversation with myself so many times. And then I think if I just move to rural wherever, or if I just move the next state over where my friends are, that they get $1,000 for a crown. I'm like, I've never gotten $1,000 for a crown, period, ever. Even my, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, but then I just have to bring it back. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's two sides to this, right? One side is the consultant in me that would say, okay, well, you have only seeing patients out of one column. You could see patients out of two and do more dentistry and make more money. Yes, you can make more, right? Like that, you're not capped at where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
There is a way up,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll never be happy with whatever number you make unless you're happy with the number you're currently making.
Mm-hmm.
So I would rather have that conversation with you than like strategize on more ways for you to make more money, because like, I just don't think that's going to do you as much long-term.
Right.
So like, I think just being cognizant of that, right? Like you made this decision to
Mm-hmm.
live where you want to live. Every time I've traded dollars for happiness, and I've done that trade a lot. So early in my career, I traded happiness for dollars, and I made an amount of money that I had thought about for a long time. And I was like, this sucks. Like, is this it? Like, you're right. You have that idea in dental school of like, I mean, for me, it was in dental school. Maybe other people thought about this a little later, but like, I'm like, when I have my practice and I make X dollars a year, that's like awesome. And I'm going to love my life and it's going to be perfect. And then in my situation, yeah, I did it. And I'm like, well, I'm not practicing the way I want. I'm not being who I want, and I'm not doing it the way I want.
Mm-hmm.
So none of it's worth it. And so then I scrapped it and I redid it. Right. And in your case, right, you're where you want to live. Like if I was making the amount of money I wanted, but I wasn't where I wanted to live, that would suck.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like every day you go home in a place that you don't want to be, living in a town you don't want to live in. Like, ugh. Like, I don't care how much you're making. That's gonna wear on you.
Yeah.
You're lucky. You're where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a practice and you're making, let's call it 250, 300. I don't know. Like, good for you, man. Like, you did it the right way. Right?
Yeah. Yep. Just had to remind myself.
Like, dude, you see patients out of one column. Like, there's no reason you should be making 300K seeing patients out of one column. Like, and I know Matt's going to get mad at me because like he made way more than that seeing patients out of one column, but like, you know what I mean? Like your life, your job is not that, like you could do more.
Right.
Like you have the option to make more.
Yeah.
And that's nice. That's a nice thing about dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
But be proud of where you're at. I want to do an exercise with you.
Yeah.
I think it'll be cool. I've never done this on air, but I want you to think of somebody that you admire. Totally putting you on the spot in life. It could even be like a TV character or something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You got it?
Yeah.
You feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah.
Okay. Who is it?
It's actually my wife's uncle. He's
cool.
He's got a really good, just rounded life.
What do you admire about him?
He just seems, he's happy in his family life and his work life. And he's just really balanced and yeah.
So you admire people who are happy in their family life and their work life and they're really balanced?
Yeah.
Anything else you admire about him?
I mean, I think, I just think he's a really good guy. And I think that, I just think he's figured out, where he wants to be and he's there. Like, I just feel like, like he's got a good setup.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, hold on, let me write that down. So he's family balanced, like family guy, balanced. He's, where he wants to be in life. He's there and he's super kind.
Yeah.
So I want you to flip that and say, so I'll kind of do my example, right? So I did this exercise and I said Steve Kerr. Do you know Steve Kerr?
Mm-hmm.
Basketball fan?
Yeah.
Cool. So, and then they asked me, what do you admire about Steve Kerr? And I said, well, he's really funny. He's kind. He's lighthearted. He empowers his team. And he's like, he's got this like low key aggression to him. Like you look at Steve Kerr and you're like, the guy's super easygoing, but he's actually like super aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to write all that down on a paper the same way I just had you list everything about your wife's uncle. And then you switch it to, I admire people who are, to I am powerful when I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just said you're powerful when you're like a really balanced guy who has like a great family life, work life, and is like, you just listed all the things that are the most important to you.
Yeah.
Which is what we talked about for the first hour of this interview.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. So like, that's really what you want.
Yeah.
And so going down this road of like just working on your leadership, working with your associate, fixing your schedule. I mean, fixing your schedule is like a weird word to say, but like, refining your schedule to fit your ideal lifestyle and taking advantage of the associate, like taking advantage of the fact that you have an associate to serve your life so that you can be that like kind family guy at home, like really balanced, like have that balance that you're looking for. Like,
Yeah. Totally.
And just being content with it, right? Like being happy with where you're at.
Yeah.
Like that's what's important to you. Never in there did you talk about how much money your wife's uncle makes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't admire that about him.
Right.
So how much money you make isn't relevant. If it's enough for you and your family, then it's enough. What's important to you, you just told me, is family, balance, lifestyle. All of your actions so far have been in that direction, right? You got the associate, you live where you want to live. Like you're doing it, man. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Like good for you. Like pat yourself on the back. How many guys in your market own a practice like the one you own? Like I know that that's not common.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not.
Took me a long time.
Yeah, right.
Look for one that was this
You
big.
had the vision. You went for it. You got it. Good for you.
Thanks.
Own that. Like be proud of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like celebrate that a little bit.
And that's hard too for me. Like I just, you know what I mean? It's like I'm that type of person that's like, well, there's always more. There's always more. And you say it all the time on the show, right? It's like
it never stops.
Yeah, it's never gonna stop. That ladder's just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get off the ladder.
Get off the ladder.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you're there. Good for you. Like you are your wife's uncle. Like just like, you got to refine a couple things, but you're there and it's important to you because you came on and the thing I sensed from you was exactly the things you like about your wife's uncle, right? Like you're like you're just like, you were questioning the sustainability. And I knew exactly to jump into that side of the conversation. I didn't start talking about how much money you're making because I didn't pick up that as a big concern. So like that is genuinely what you want. And it's easy. Yeah. That's like the easiest thing to get, dude. Like it's like 5 uncomfortable conversations and you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right.
Cool. How do you feel?
I feel good, man. Thanks.
So you didn't think this was going to go this way?
Yeah. I mean, you never know where it's going to go. In fact, I spent a lot of time like, I wonder where this is going to go.
Well, it's fun because like as we've done this more, we have people that listen to the show. Like when we first started doing this, there wasn't a whole lot of released episodes, so like people couldn't really listen. But now that they are, I think it's been really cool to like, this was fun for me, man. I see a lot of myself in you. I think I'll say that's probably every group practice owner. But it's cool because I think I definitely see a lot of things that I did, for sure. Like I think you're really close to where you want to be. It's exciting.
Yeah. So saying that, like you say, you see yourself in me or what? So like, because I'm kind of at this thing like, so I do zero marketing, none. Like I have a website. I pay someone $99 to do that website. I guess you could say my insurance is my marketing, right? I take a huge write-off, and so that is kind of like you could say that's my marketing, right? But at this point, it's like, because like you say, I've felt like I can't take on a ton more without having to put in more work, and I don't want to put in more work. So I don't know like which way to go with that.
Do you use Swell?
So no, I was gonna sign up for Swell, and then we did Weave, and so I started using theirs where I put out I send whoever I want to a review request. It doesn't go to everyone. Again, like
how many reviews do you get a month with that?
Probably like maybe like 5 or 6. Yeah. So not like a ton. But that I think like that's part of I'm partly scared to get a bunch of new patients. Like I just feel like I don't know where to put them.
So, right, I kind of sense in the same thing. So, let me kind of take you through my train of thought as you ask that question. Right, you're asking the marketing question. so your revenue per new patient, or your revenue per patient in general in your practice, is pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I look at your practice, you've got more patients than me. My practice almost does twice as much as yours.
Right.
So like, if I'm looking at you on the spectrum, like I'm on the, I'm a fuel efficient practice. You're on the, you're burning through patients with little revenue based on where you're located, right? That's a big piece. So I'm not going to make you feel bad.
Yeah.
But
No.
so like, let's just have an honest evaluation of where your practice is at.
Mm-hmm.
Low revenue per patient.
Right.
So that makes it difficult to spend a lot of money in marketing because like, yeah, right. Like I had this guy on Tom and he was like the exact opposite. So if I looked at your revenue per patient, you're like 450, something like that. He was at 1,600 a patient. So like a patient in his practice, and I know it's a different geographic market, right? But a patient in his practice is worth 4 times more than a patient in your practice.
Right.
So like he can pay anything it costs to get that patient.
Yeah.
Right. Like we're like $900. So like for me, like $800 to $900, like, yeah, I can pay, like, I can be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
You really can't. You don't have the capacity, which like is a whole nother conversation we didn't get into, right? The whole hygiene capacity issue.
Right.
But like in general, so like, oh man, you're going to get me going. So like, are you an NFL guy?
Not a ton.
Not really. So there's this
a little bit, but
I'm a big analytics person. I think that's like obvious. And analytics in sports fascinates me. And so like this is like anytime we talk about hygiene expansion, I love the analogy of like it's 4th and 2 on the 28-yard line. Are you going for it or are you kicking a field goal? And that is like a football thing, right? Like that's really big nowadays in analytics and football. Is like, do you go for it on 4th and 2 on the 28-yard line or are you kicking the field goal? And in your case, like your team doesn't have a great chance of converting that 2 yards on 4th down. So you need to play it safe and kick the field goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you in hygiene, you can't be super aggressive because you guys aren't great at your revenue per patient is kind of low. Like in general, you guys aren't that like type of explosive offense that could really take advantage of those extra patients.
Right.
So taking it a little slower with hygiene expansion, new patient flow, keeping your costs low, especially with your high overhead, kind of makes more sense for you. So that's why I said Swell. Swell's $150 a month or whatever. And Richard's probably getting mad at me. I don't even know our special pricing. Like, but it's super like, so I was using Legwork and I was getting 5 reviews a month. Mm-hmm. I did nothing other than switch to Swell. And I'm like, this is not an ad. And I had immediately 20 reviews a month. So it's like super low cost marketing that will get you a ton of patients. And you don't have to worry about it because like, if you can't fit them in, who cares? Like you didn't pay much for them anyway. Mm-hmm. So like you're not in a position, in my opinion, right now to like really be aggressive about marketing. Mm-hmm. You haven't, you're at capacity, you're low revenue, like all of the signs are telling me that this is not somebody that goes for it on 4th and 2. Right. You kick the field goal and you play defense, like,
right.
So that's kind of where I view the marketing thing with you. Mm-hmm. And right, like that's we could have talked the whole time about that thing. Right. Like that was a pretty dense thing to really just kind of ask me. But like, if I'm looking at your metrics
right at the very end. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, but like, so and again, like that's kind of the value of like the analytics, because like how many times would I have a guy on here with an associate that's like, we're in this 1.5 and you tell them like market your way to 2 docs, but it's like in your situation, just analytically, we look at your metrics and that's not what makes the most sense for you. Yeah. And based on your goals either, like you would take an income hit at first for sure. And does that really align with your goals and your lifestyle piece? Like probably not. So I don't think that's an avenue you need to really go aggressively on. I would do some more marketing than you're doing, but keep the cost low, right? Like Swell, very affordable internet marketing, and just kind of like, look, just maybe referrals, like kind of keep your cost low and steady, slow growth in new patients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know if there's any way to increase the revenue per patient. I mean, to be honest, I do every, like, name a procedure, I do it other than perio surgery, So
yeah, I mean, like there are ways.
right.
Like my guess is if you were to poll like 10 dentists in your area with your insurance fees, you're probably not at the top.
Yeah, could be.
There are ways. And like, again, like every one of these things that we've talked about the last 10 minutes could be like a whole nother like 2 hours that we talk, but like even just the 2 columns, right? Like seeing patients out of 2 columns would increase that number for you because you'd be more efficient. So like, again, there's a lot of things that can be done. But ultimately, yeah, like at the end of the day, you also have to accept your like, Matt would hate it, but like you have to like also just acknowledge that you're never going to be on the other end of the spectrum, right? You can be maybe not as far down as you are, but like you're always going to be, down there to some extent.
Totally. Yeah. It's just part of it.
Yeah. So, sorry to get derailed. I think this was a valuable conversation though for everyone in the audience, right? Like I love it when there's an example of how you can see how analytics can be used to like inform decision making. And that was like a great, like you were asking about marketing and just like very clearly outlined how your analytics impact that decision. But like, I didn't go through that with you because like I could have gone through stuff like that with you for like 15 minutes and I don't want to do that. Yeah. So, so any other questions for me, man, before we sign off?
No, thanks, man.
I always want to end with the proud stuff though, right? Like that kind of got lost in it, especially because I kind of tore you down a little bit. So like, don't forget that.
Yeah.
Be proud of yourself. You've accomplished a lot based on what's important to you. Like money is important to other people more than it is to you. Like we've kind of already addressed that. So don't let other people's values about how much they make and what that says about them kind of don't own that. That's not you.
Yeah.
Like be proud of the fact that you are, where you want to live. Like don't have your happiness dependent on that, but use that as a way to feel good about yourself because that's an accomplishment that you have that nobody can take away from you, that other people have not. A lot of people live somewhere they don't want to live. I literally just got off the phone with somebody that is living exactly where they don't want to live for money. Be proud of the fact that that's not you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like I bet like 20% of the people listening to this show right now are like mad at me for saying that because they're living somewhere they don't want to live for money. Like, like be proud of that. Right. Like comparison is the thief of their joy right now. Yeah. So like, you can't win them all. Just win the ones that are important to you. And you told me your wife's uncle, all those things that you admire about him, that's you. That's like you at your best, right? You at your best is that guy with the great lifestyle, the balance, everything. Like that's what's important to James. And so I hate when I have to say a fake name at that moment because it'd be so much more powerful if I say the real name. But like, that's what's important to you.
Yeah.
So be proud of that and like internalize that and don't let what's important to other people. Like nobody's going to be the best at everything. Be the best at the things that matter to you. And it seems like you're on your way there and that's what's important. So I'm proud of you, man.
Thanks.
Cool. This was fun.
Oh, way fun.
Alrighty. Well, we are back with, now I can't say alrighty in peace. You guys just mess with me.
We're going to put it on shirts, George. I really like it. Alrighty with a little like the beard, like just the beard there so they know it's you.
There's got to be a segue word. Anyway, we're back from our interview with James. This is the outro. And I'm curious, Matt, we've kind of been building this up to be, you've got a lot of thoughts. More than last time, which was also a lot of thoughts. So let's get into it.
My notes are 5 things instead of last time was 2. So I have over double my thoughts. Where do you want to start, George?
Well, I think we talked about the things I was going to work on with James as we start working together. And, I think that could probably wait till the end. So maybe if you have thoughts before then, and then I'll kind of close off with what we're going to be doing.
Sure. Let's talk about the assistant discussion with the clinical notes thing. Because this is something I think you do really well. You handle uncomfortable conversations with your staff, incredibly well. I love how you start and you coach James to start off with getting vulnerable, being like, hey, this is a really uncomfortable conversation for me. Like, just so you know, just kind of like get them to drop their guard. You have your guard dropped, you're a little naked in front of them and really being, your authentic self. One piece I want to kind of change the way you have these conversations, I think would serve you. One thing I learned from my life coaching training is that instead of starting with the why, which you go to a lot, start with a higher commitment, get alignment around that, and then offer whatever it is you need to offer. So in his case, the higher commitment could be, hey, at our team meeting, we all aligned around, the patient experience and making that be the best possible experience they could ever have, and that they leave this office feeling better than when they came in. And in service of that, I would really like it if you did the late hours, or, we talked about in the meeting about accommodating as many patients as possible. And this is one way we can do that. So instead of, this is the reasons why you're doing it. It's like, this is the higher commitment we have all agreed upon.
So it's like the ethical why. Almost like this is...
I don't look at it that way. No,
so you look at it as like, we all made a commitment to do this. So
Yes.
part of that commitment that we all made is this thing I'm asking you to do.
Yes. So like you've already had a meeting around it, or however it looks, mission statement, values, however like it looks in your office, the details can change, but that like everyone has agreed upon these certain things and this fits inside of that. So there's easier alignment to get.
I guess I'm sort of thinking out loud because it's the first time I hear this concept where I don't have any of those things. So for me, the why is kind of like, we all care about patients. Like, it's more common sense stuff than it is like something we all agree that.
I mean, you've had traction meetings with your office, right? You've had...
No.
Okay. So, I mean, I would recommend having those. And so you can all get aligned under like whatever it is, a mission statement or like however you want to put it, but that everyone's here, like everyone knows their purpose.
No, I agree with you. I think that if we had like some sort of like, our team believes in these 3 things, then tying whatever it is we're asking them to do to those 3 things could be very effective, for sure.
Right.
100%.
That was just my one thought for that.
No, I think that's a fantastic layer to add because a lot of offices have that and they like try to run their practices with it.
And again, not the thought leader on this idea. This is something I learned. Very clear. But I'm a conglomerator, is that a word? Of ideas. That's what I do.
Yeah, and when we are the thought leader, we'll make sure to mention it. Otherwise, you can assume that we're not.
The scheduling out of one column thing gets to me.
Okay.
With his fees, scheduling out of one column is just a way for him to feel like he's tapped out and he can't do anymore. That scheduling out of one column only works with high fees and high, procedure dollar that you're doing. Like I was able to hit, $1.5 million scheduling out of one chair because of that. So
yeah, but like, I don't think you like take fees out of it. I don't think any dentist should ever schedule out of one column.
I know.
Like, why? Unless you're doing specialty procedures.
Right.
But if your procedures are not very high doctor time, then I think 2 columns should be a standard for most dentists.
I forget the rationale behind that for this doc. Did he have 2 assistants? Did he have the operatories?
So they share a 3rd column, but he said it's primarily his procedures. So he would probably have to, his associate's not super busy. So she would have to have so some of her unproductive appointments, like let's just say a crown seat, would have to be in her primary column. And then he could have 2 columns that are primarily like, because the difference is once you go from like he pretty much has a productive column, she has a productive column, and then they have a shared unproductive column. So then you would have to change it to, he has 2 columns that are all of his procedures, productive and non-productive, and then she has 1 column that is productive and non-productive. So it's kind of a paradigm shift in the way that scheduling is done in that office. But if he's booked out further than her and he's, low fees, but I mean, the fees, I feel like everybody should do it. Like, I get fees make it easier to see what patients through 1 column, but you are there, you have the time, you might have the capacity. Why not?
Yeah, it may have been just something he's never been exposed to, like scheduling that way.
Are you still 1 columm?
Primarily. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
This is news to me.
Yes, it's like yes and no. It's not, like I'm a little bit in between.
But you have 2 assistants.
I do. Right now I have 1 because we're in transition, but I will have 2. Yes.
So 2 assistants, 1 column? How
Sometimes.
does that work?
They'll seat the next patient kind of,
In another room. So
In
you're
another
2
room.
rooms. So you're pretty much 1 column is really just a disorganized 2 column schedule.
kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Which is fine. I mean, I think it's just like a 1 column per assistant is kind of a good general rule. Yeah,
right.
for sure.
But I just try to make it so I'm not doing a lot of little things. Like I'm almost never doing little unproductive things.
Yeah, and then you do a lot of same day dentistry out of hygiene.
Right.
So your fake 1 column,
It's like
makes that
column.
possible. Yeah.
My next thing is you stole one of my lines, and you didn't give me credit for.
I didn't?
No. The whole "this is your career" line, "this is your career, this is your life." That's like my life motto, and I said it on our first podcast interviewing with Richard,
Which I've listened to.
which you've listened to. So this is the floor is yours. Whatever you want to do with that new information that I just gave you.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Okay.
I don't even remember saying it.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. We'll talk off air about that.
So
Got it.
did you have any comments about, I think the one thing that we both disagreed on how this was handled was the conversation about money.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on, so like that conversation about his uncle, right? Like for me, that was gratifying because I talked to this guy at the very beginning and nowhere in there did I really get the sense that he came on Practice Underwater to make more money.
No, and you're right with that.
So I didn't talk about any ways that he can make more money.
In my opinion, James would serve well exploring his relationship with money and getting coached around it. Because my interpretation is he's got a lot of stuff around it that is preventing him from even thinking that he can make more than what he is.
For sure, that's there, right? Because he has the one column is full thing,
right?
100%. But like when I asked him like what's important to you, right? I kind of secondhand asked him like what's important, like that exercise of who do you admire and why. My guess is you don't have to say this, but like if I had you do that same exercise, the person that you admired probably is wealthy. Yeah, you're nodding.
Probably.
Yeah. So like that's important to you. And like nowhere in there, I don't even know what his uncle does for a living. But it didn't sound like, he's a well-balanced guy that, works and has his family and is kind. And those are all the things that James is trying to be. And so for me, that was kind of a cool moment at the end of the interview. Like midway through, he's kind of like, I didn't think we'd take it this way, but this is interesting. And then we got to the end and yeah, of course, right? Like now we're in a coaching relationship. It's different. Like, there's a financial investment involved. There has to be a monetary, part of it that is obviously improving. And that's kind of where, I identified things that as I was going through the interview, that things that I really wanted to make sure we talked about, and in our coaching relationship. Like I think one, I just kind of briefly mentioned it, but the AR and the whole relationship with his office manager in general, that's like a leadership piece that can really unlock a lot for him because he has an office manager and they're called an office manager and everything, but they're not being an office manager. And that once you're able to have an office manager that's like actually managing your practice, it does a lot for you. And that feeling of exhaustion that he has will really be assisted with a very high functioning office manager. And, he was like, do I get a different manager? And it's like, no, I think you need to become a better.
That was a great line. I actually audibly laughed out loud when you were like, oh, well, just get rid of you then.
Yeah, but I think the point remains, right? Like if you're not going to be a good leader, and he acknowledged that, so I can say that, right? He's not being the best leader he could be. So how could he expect the same from his middle management? They can't. Yeah. You have to be the best, and then you can expect the best from them. And so I think, the AR, that's a situation that probably goes through the office manager, but that's something I'd like to explore with him, make sure that we get that under control. His leadership's a big piece. And then I think, the scheduling, like going from changing his scheduling to be more productive. I think that will probably be the biggest financial impact on him is scheduling, his hourly production will go up a lot. And that'll probably be the biggest piece is improving his own production. But I really do want to explore, like he has this whole weird, like 3 hygiene columns with 2 hygienists and an assistant. I would like to see if we could expand hygiene just by adding another hygiene assistant and then having 2 assisted columns. He has 7 ops, so he would have enough space for that. So that was one thing that I want to explore with him a lot is because he needs to find ways. He's a low patient efficiency guy, right? And the whole associate thing, working with his associate to be a little bit more productive would be nice. And like we try to improve his patient efficiency, right? We look at his case acceptance, we look at his diagnosis, we look at those things and we try to work on them to improve his efficiency per patient. But at the same time, I think we're always going to be dealing with a dentist who is just going to need more patients to be productive. And so having that, because he has low fees, we might have to do 2 assisted hygienists. And then that's a way for him to expand his capacity, some low-cost marketing. And I think that's really the track that I see. And, that's what we'll be working on for sure.
Yeah, and that's going to be a really cool relationship. And I hope, whether we have him back on or however we get updated on, what this office looks like in 6 months, a year, it will be really cool to see. And like you said in the interview, in his area, which we're not going to give away, it's an uncommon office to have something of this patient size, of this many ops, of this many hygienists, and a really testament to what he's built with his office.
Yeah, it's interesting. We normally don't talk about this. Like a lot of times, people that come on the show hire us, and we just never really like discuss it. But this is kind of cool to like actually outline. Yeah, because these were things that were coming to mind as I was doing the interview, where I was like, oh, if this guy does coaching, this is totally what we'd work on. And I think you always have those thoughts, but you don't always share them. And so this is kind of I enjoyed doing that. So thanks, Matt.
Of course. That's all I had. That's all my thoughts.
That's it?
That's it.
Really? I do want to go back to then, I want to talk about your relationship with money. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of flipping the script on you a little bit. I know we have, I don't know if you want to call them different. I don't think they're so different, but I definitely think we have different relationships with money. I want to talk a little bit about yours.
What would you
I want you to talk about yours.
Just go right in it?
Yeah.
I don't know how to start. I guess like getting to this point in this year and the past year of the level of income I was able to hit and how that really impacted my life was as positive an impact if not better than I thought. I always thought making a lot of money would be really cool, just as like, a little kid and thinking about it, and like that proves you're successful, whatever like stereotypes I had about it. And then it happened and it was even cooler. So I don't want to be let that like lost on the audience. People, we tiptoe around money a lot. There's a lot of like shame and guilt about like, people who do financially well and everything that brings with it. But like for me, at least, it really is cool. And like being able to hit retirement goals and, our house renovation goals and getting the wedding I wanted. And, it was everything I wanted and more. And so like, I know you come from a place of, you don't need a lot of money. You're not someone who's just has that lifestyle, or like, not to say I have an extravagant lifestyle, but like it's not as important to you as it is to me. So I just wanted to give that viewpoint so that, the viewers could hear it.
And I talk about it a lot on air, but I don't think I've ever like kind of laid out the full story. I think we all have the idea of like, oh man, when I make X amount of money, like that's kind of like it, like I've made it. I think we all have that. And I had that. And so bought my practice, and I think I was like month 3. I kind of like hit that number, like you make this much per month. And so that was like the top of the ladder for me in terms of what I had envisioned for myself. And so it was a weird moment to like have hit it and to look back at like, okay, this is what it's like. And then I'm like, well, this sucks. And I did it in a way that was so inauthentic to who I am. And that's what made it so hard. So I felt like, sure, I was making money, but I was doing it in a way that was not myself. And that was when I realized, I guess, how unhappy I probably was in my life, especially, because I had hit that last goal that I had. And then I really had a chance to say, okay, nothing's going to change. What do I think about my life? And yeah, so I think my relationship with money is really affected by that moment where I was like, okay, this is not nearly as important to me as I thought it was. And let me kind of break it down and rebuild it in a way that is going to be myself and the way I'm like now I love the way I practice. And like I'm finally back to like about a year later, that same amount of money. But it feels so much better this time because it's me being myself, doing what I love, the way I want to do it, and making money. And I think for me, it has to be the and making money and not making money and, you know? And so that's where my relationship with money is. And I would much rather, I think everybody would much rather be happy than have money. But if you're happy, then money's awesome. But if you're unhappy, then money is just money.
Yeah, and I think, like you were saying there, you put in the work to decipher your relationship around money. Like you've got coached on it. You did some personal reflections on that. I think everyone will be served by doing that. Like really exploring what is your relationship to money and like how does that show up in your life? How is that holding you back or elevating you? Just to like constantly know, what is going on in relation to that. I think it serves people well to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I think and for me, there's a lot of fear and anxiety around it, right? Because there's a lot of comparison. That's like the easiest way to compare yourself is how much money do you make? How much money do I make? Like that's like kind of, we can all compare ourselves that way. And I think that gets challenging and it makes you question what's important to you. And, and kind of like I was talking about with James in this interview, to go back to the interview, like on the list of things that's important to him, money is not very high on the list, but to other people it is. And so it's not fair for you to compare yourself based on their criteria. You can't like something is important to everybody, but it's not everything is important to you. And so pick the things that are important to you and use that to build your own self-esteem. And I think that was the conversation I wanted to have with him in this interview. And I'm happy I did.
Yeah, you did it great.
Awesome. Well, I hope that was long-winded enough for you guys. I have no idea how long that was, but we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater. Matt's got a great interview coming up with a doc who's totally killing it in a startup. Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.